My name's Katie, and this happened last Halloween in a small town in northeast Pennsylvania. Every year, our town holds this big Halloween carnival, the kind that sets up in the empty fairgrounds just outside of town. It's become kind of a tradition for me and my two best friends, Alyssa and Jordan, to go every year. It's not a huge carnival, but it's always festive. Strings of orange and purple lights hanging over the booths, the smell of kettle corn in the air, people walking around in costumes, and that old Ferris wheel that creaks as it turns. This year, its orange lights flickered like candles about to burn out. It was one of those crisp October nights where you could see your breath. We arrived around 8 p.m., and the place was packed. Families with kids in costumes, couples taking pictures, and teenagers trying to win prizes. The first booth we went to was something new this year, a game called Pumpkin Ring Toss. Basically, you try to toss these glow-in-the-dark rings onto the stems of real pumpkins sitting on hay bales. Simple, but kind of charming. When we walked up, though, there was a handwritten sign taped to the counter that said, "On break, back in 10 minutes." We were about to move on to another game when I noticed someone behind the stand, just standing there. They were wearing a long, black cloak and a white mask. But not a normal one. It had this disturbing, exaggerated grin, a wide, toothy smile carved into the face, and the eyes, they looked blind. Just blank, faded circles, like old porcelain. He or she, I couldn't really tell, slowly reached out and pulled the on-break sign off the counter without saying a word. Then they handed me 3 of the glowing rings. I remember glancing at my friends, kind of half laughing, thinking maybe it was some kind of Halloween act. So we played. The rings glowed a pale green as we tossed them. Alyssa missed every time. Jordan managed 1, but somehow I landed 2 perfectly. When I looked back up, the masked person was just standing there again, silent, head tilted slightly to the side. Instead of handing me one of the bright stuffed toys hanging from the booth's wall, they reached under their cloak and pulled out this small stuffed skeleton. It was dirty, like it had been dropped in mud. The fabric was frayed, and one of its button eyes was cracked. They held it out to me without saying a word. I didn't know what to say, so I just took it and awkwardly said, "Thanks," before we walked away. We'd only made it a few steps when a man in a jester costume, wearing an official carnival lanyard, came rushing up to the booth. He shouted, "Hey, you can't be back there. Employees only." The masked figure didn't react at all, just stood there staring at him. The jester guy looked genuinely freaked out, like he hadn't been expecting anyone behind that booth. I remember turning to my friends, whispering, "Maybe it's just part of the show." But Alyssa said the look on that worker's face didn't seem like acting. We didn't want to stick around, so we moved on. We grabbed some Halloween-themed cotton candy, orange and black swirls, and headed for the House of Mirrors. It's this long, maze-like building made of reflective glass. You walk in expecting jump scares, but mostly it's just disorienting and kind of fun. Inside, the reflections warped and stretched our faces, and we laughed at how weird we looked. But halfway through, I saw something that made my stomach drop. In one of the mirrors, standing way behind us, or maybe not even behind us, I couldn't tell, was that same figure. The black cloak, the white mask. Except now, because of the mirrors, there were dozens of them, grinning back at us from every angle. I froze. My friends noticed my face and asked what was wrong, but when I pointed, he was gone. We brushed it off. Maybe it was just a worker trying to add a scare, right? But there was something about how still he'd been. Like he wasn't trying to scare anyone, just watching. After that, we went on the Ferris wheel. The line was long, but the view from the top made it worth it. You could see the whole carnival spread out below. I looked down and noticed something in the crowd. Someone wasn't moving. In a sea of people walking, laughing, and taking pictures, there was one figure just standing completely still, directly beneath our cart. That same white mask pointed straight up at us. I pointed it out to my friends, and they both saw it too. But when the wheel came back down and we looked again, the person was gone, just vanished into the crowd. By then, the mood had shifted. We were all trying to stay positive, but I could tell we were uneasy. The last attraction we decided to check out was something called the Trail of Jack-o'-lanterns. It was basically a long wooded path lined with hundreds of carved pumpkins. Some cute, some creepy, all lit up with candles. It was quiet there. The sounds of the carnival faded away behind us until all we could hear was the crunch of leaves underfoot and the faint flicker of candles. About halfway through, I started to feel that prickling sensation, the one you get when someone's watching you. At first, I tried to ignore it, but when we got closer to the end of the trail, I saw him, standing at the far end of the path, perfectly still, just between two glowing pumpkins, that same black cloak. That same mask with the blind eyes and the smile that looked more like a wound. I stopped walking. "Do you guys see that?" Alyssa nodded slowly. Jordan whispered, "What the hell?" The figure didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there facing us. We didn't want to walk toward him, so we decided to turn back. But as we did, I heard footsteps, crunching leaves, behind us. He was following. We started walking faster, then running. The lights from the carnival came into view, and the sound of laughter and music felt like the only safe thing in the world. We burst out from the trail, breathing hard, and looked around. The crowd was thick again, and the masked person was nowhere in sight. We went straight to a security guard near the Ferris wheel. The guy must have thought we were crazy, but he took it seriously. He told us to wait by the fence and radioed someone to check the trail. A few minutes later, he came back shaking his head. "Nobody there?" He said. "Are you sure it wasn't a performer?" I held up the stuffed skeleton, explaining how the person had given it to me earlier. That's when his expression changed. He said, "Mind if I take a look at that for a second?" He turned it over in his hands, pressing around the seams. Then he froze. Right in the back, sewn inside the fabric, was a small plastic disc, an Apple AirTag. The guard looked up at me and said, "This thing's been tracking you." I felt sick. My hands started shaking. He removed it carefully and told us he'd report it to the local police. But honestly, all I wanted to do was get out of there. I tossed that skeleton and the AirTag straight into the nearest trash can, and we left without saying a word. Whoever that was, whether it was some creep working the carnival or someone pretending to, they knew what they were doing. They didn't just want to scare us. They wanted to find out where we went after the carnival ended.